very strange.
Have you ever gone to a restaurant, enjoyed a great meal with excellent service, and walked away realizing that you tipped way more than the usual expected 18 to 20%? Or maybe you are a woman at a club having a good time with your friends. When a guy buys you a drink out of nowhere, suddenly when he asks for your number, you feel this heavy pressure to hand it over. Sure, a lot of women give out fake numbers to stay safe, but the psychological tension in that moment is very real.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
The second you accept that drink or that extra level of service, the air fills with an invisible social contract that if you don't stay to chat or give him your contact info, you are framed as the cold-hearted person. In psychology, that invisible social contract is called the law of reciprocation. And once you know what to look for, you realize that it's operating everywhere in our daily lives. At its core, the concept is simple. When someone gives you something, your brain automatically feels a push to return the favor. In everyday life, this instinct makes total sense. If a friend buys you a birthday gift, you make a mental note to get them one later. If your neighbors invite you over for dinner, you host them next time. Anthropologists have found this root active in literally every human society on Earth because evolutionarily it helped our ancestors survive. Creating mutual debts allowed early tribes to share tools, trade food, and build trust with strangers without the fear of being taken advantage of. The issue is that your brain registered this sense of debts whether you wanted the favor or not. Anyone who understands how this mechanism works can trigger that feeling of obligations on purpose, using an evolutionary survival rule to hack and back you in the corner of compliance.
Me personally, I wouldn't take this level of disrespect.
To understand why this rule carries so much power, we have to look at how deeply we have been conditioned from childhood to avoid one specific social label: the freeloader. Society has a collective distaste for people who take without giving back. Because we want to avoid being seen as selfish or ungrateful, we will often go to extreme lengths to clear a debt. That instinct is precisely where manipulators find their leverage. An initial favor doesn't even have to be requested to trigger guilt. The sheer weight of feeling in debt often forces a yes to a request that we would have otherwise flatly refused. To see how easily this gets exploited in the real world, look at a classic study conducted in the 1970s by psychologist Dennis Regan. Regan brought participants into a room under the guise of an art appreciation experiment. Each participant was paired up with another person to rate the paintings. What the participant didn't know was that the other person's, let's call him Joe, was an actor working with a researcher. Regan ran the test under two different setups. In the first setup, during the short break, Joe left the room and returned with 2 bottles of Coca-Cola. He handed one to the participant and said, "I asked the researcher if I could grab Coke, and he said it was fine, so I grabbed one for you too." It was completely unrequested. And in the second setup, Joe took the exact same break but returned empty-handed. Once all the paintings were rated and the main researcher left the room, Joe made his move. He told the participant that he was selling raffle tickets for a new car, that if he sold the most, he would win a $50 prize. He asked if they would buy a few tickets at 25 cents each. The results were blatant. Participants who had been given a 10-cent bottle of Coke bought twice as many raffle tickets as the one who received nothing. They felt an immediate pressure to clear that uninvited debt, even though they never asked for the Coca-Cola in the first place. Now look, it's easy to look at this small experiment with a bottle of soda and think you would never fall for something bigger. Well, that's what a lot of scam victims thought before they fell for the scam, like, I'm not that stupid, or how could I even fall for this simple trick? But high control groups like cults use this exact same mechanism to capture intelligent, rational people by drowning the target in unsolicited favors, in effect, forcing them into an intangible social submissions of subsequent requests, if and when that comes. Now imagine you have just moved to a new city, or you're going through a brutal breakup, you're isolated, stressed, and running on empty. Out of nowhere, a group of potential friends invites you over, and there is no weird pitch or talk about strange doctrines. They just cook you a hot dinner, listen to you talk, and shower you with genuine praise. When you mention that you're struggling, they offer you a free place to stay for a few weeks with no strings attached. To your brain, these people feels like lifesavers, but emotionally, a massive ledger has just been opened up in your mind, and now you are deeply in the red. Months pass, and that warm hospitality slowly shifts. Suddenly, they suggest you to stop talking to your toxic family members, or they ask you to hand over your savings to support the community. Your logical mind rings a lot of alarm bells, but your social brain just hits a wall. Saying no just doesn't feel like you're declining a request. It definitely feels like you're stabbing your benefactors in the back for all the goods they have done for you. And to human psychology, feeling like an ungrateful traitor often feels far worse than slowly giving up your freedom. You don't have to be targeted by a cult to be exposed to this mechanism. On a daily basis, businesses, marketers, and everyday manipulators trigger this exact same wiring using two common tactics that I have identified. The first one is the uninvited freebie. Think about walking through a store like Costco. A sales rep innocently hands you a tiny piece of food on a toothpick. Well, it cost them pennies to do so, and you didn't really ask for it, but the moment you accept it, a subtle sense of obligation registers in your brain, and walking away immediately without looking at the box or the products, or at least listen to their little spiel, feels uncomfortable. So people frequently ended up buying a $20 box of food they never planned on getting, just to settle that little 50-cent psychological debt that registered in their brain just a few moments ago. The second one is what I call the rejection then retreat technique. This method relies on a fake compromise. So someone starts by asking you for something very unreasonable. So for example, asking you to volunteer 2 hours a week for the next 2 years. Of course, your immediate reaction is gonna say no, right? They pause and then step back and say, totally understand. How about just buying a $5 raffle ticket to support us? Well, to your brain, that person just made a concession by lowering their outrageous demand, and your natural instinct is to match their concession by changing your no to a yes. What you don't realize is that they never expected you to agree to that huge request in the first place. The $5 ask was their goal all along, and they force a compromise out of you by faking the first one. So be very careful. So, with all the dark psychology concepts and example talk, how do you really stop people from hacking this rule without turning into a paranoid jerk who rejects every single nice gesture? Well, the key is to reframe the favor instead of flatly rejecting them just for the sake of rejecting them. I mean, come on. You might lose out on some free stuff. I know I wouldn't want that for myself. I like the free stuff, just not the strings that go with it. Back in college, I unknowingly practiced this method of not feeling guilty when getting the free stuff. I even went as far as asking for more free stuff, knowing that the people handing it out cannot say no and even make them feel guilty for not handing it over. Like when a new apartment complex trying to recruit for freshmen on campus to sign up for the next school year, they were handing out free hats and shirts. And I played this trick on them where I asked for a couple more hats and shirts to recruit my friends to the scheme, when in fact I just wanted more stuff. So if you're in college, definitely do what I did. That's what the college experience is all about, buddy.
Look, nigga, I talk factual, then I what, nigga? Give me that, nigga. You don't know what to do with that. You know what? Bro, you don't know what to do with that. Give me that. That's what I did to that little nigga. Give me that. You don't know what to do with that.
But back to the topic. When someone offers you a gift, a drink, or a favor, take it in with good faith, assuming that they're just being nice. But the second that you have a hint or realize that that favor came with hidden strings attached, the moment that that free drinks turn into an aggressive demand for your contact info or your email, or that free sample at Costco turns into a high pressure pitch, you mentally reclassify what happened with that favor. You tell yourself that definitely it wasn't a gift, it was a sell tactic, so I'm gonna go and get mine, B. For real. That's what I did. The law of reciprocation states that we owe favors in return for genuine favors. It does not state that we owe favors in return for trickery tactics. So the moment that you spot a favor as a compliance tactic or strategy, the psychological debts in your mind just completely vanish. You can keep the sample, the drink, and say no thanks, and walk away feeling zero guilt. You have simply outsmarted a tactic was used on you, which comes in handy when you are grabbing a free sample at Costco while waiting for your next paycheck to hit your account. That's what happened to me.
But nigga, I talk factual, then I what, nigga? Give me that, nigga. You don't know what to do with that. You know what, bro? You don't know what to do with that. Give me that. That's what I did to that little nigga. Give me that. You don't know what to do with that.
At the end of the day, reciprocation itself is a good thing. It is what allows us to form real friendships, build trust, and help each other out without keeping a score on a spreadsheet. The goal isn't trying to stop being generous or stop accepting help. It's simply learning to spot the difference between someone genuinely looking out for you versus someone buying your compliance for cheap using trickery tactics. Once you see how the mechanism works, you start letting people turn your good nature into their leverage. So stay being a good person. With that being said, I hope you learned something valuable from this video. If you like the content, hit the like button to help motivate me to make more content like this, as I have a lot more in store coming up. And subscribe if you gain some knowledge today. And if you have made it this far, thank you. I'm glad you stopped by and spending your time watching this video. But for now, look after yourself, stay safe, and catch you later. One love.
Thank you.